シートが入られたら、どうぞ前の方進んでもらってください。
Ali?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, in this room and online. I am Fatun Azari, former FCCJ president, and I am honored to welcome our guest speaker today, His Excellency Mr. Shrangal Wibbs Jr., the president of Palau. The image we usually have when we hear Pacific Island is a paradise for an escape to the beauty of palm trees, white sand, beaches, and heavenly blue sky. And all of this is true for Palau, a beautiful Pacific island nation of 340 islands and a population of about 20,000 people. Until recently, and like many other nations, the Republic of Palau has faced environmental challenges. One of them is the rising sea levels. But at present, a new concern for Palau is the planned water release from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant this summer. And this will be pumped into the Pacific Ocean. Japan stressed it can remove all the harmful radioactive substance except the safe, neutrally occurring tritium. Palau President, His Excellency Mr. Shrangal Wibbs Jr., elected in 2021, is at present on an official visit to Japan, inspected Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, and tasted local food according to reports. And he will talk today about the outcome of this trip and his meeting with Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Without further ado, please welcome Palau President, His Excellency Mr. Shrangal Wibbs.
Ali, and warm greetings from Palau. It is indeed an honor to be here addressing the FCCJ. I'm glad to see our friend Ambassador Orikasawa from the Embassy of Japan in Palau joining us today. We are very grateful for the opportunity to make this would be my third trip to Japan in the past year. I was privileged to make my first official visit last year in September. At the beginning of September, met with Prime Minister then, Prime Minister Kishida, came again at the end of September for Prime Minister Abe's funeral, and are here again. Palau, as you know, is very close to Japan, geographically, but also, I'd say, culturally and historically. 25% of our population is of Japanese ancestry. The Japan-Palau Kyushu Ridge connects us. So we feel at home when we come to Japan. I always like to say that Palau has the highest consumption of kikomen soy sauce per capita in the world. And that's because we love soy sauce on everything. But we are really here to continue the strong relationship that we have. Palau, of course, ravaged by COVID, lost most of its tourism, almost went back to zero, which accounts for 30% of our GDP. So one of our biggest challenges is how to bring visitors back to Palau, and especially Japanese visitors. Japanese visitors were once the #1 visitors coming to Palau, but because of the lack of easy access of travel, like direct flights, which we hope will resume soon, and we're here trying to talk to the airlines and find solutions to get them going again. We're hopeful that hopefully by the end of the year we'll have regular direct service to Palau and bring the many Japanese who love to swim with our sharks, right? See the beautiful fish that we have and swim with our jellyfish will be able to come again. But also see the history and rich culture that we have. You know, in Palau, one of the our favorite sports is yaki. We don't say baseball because even though we speak English, our Palauan language, 20% of it is Japanese words, like yakyu. We are just, privileged to be here to talk about how we can continue to build our economy, to strengthen our partnership and security, and to meet the challenges that we have with climate change and protecting our oceans. So, as you know, we were able to go to Onohama, visit the fish processing facility there. And, Palau has been a leader in ocean protection, ocean conservation. And one of our goals is that we believe that the ocean should be protected so that we can continue to fish. So Palau, a few years ago, passed a law to protect 80% of our oceans. But what we want to do is move toward 100% management, but optimize the use of those resources and developing onshore facilities to add value to whatever fishing activity that we do. And really create partnership, hopefully with Japanese companies, Japanese fishermen that would like to partner with Palau in the fisheries area. And I think most importantly, we were able to taste the fish in Fukushima. Tastes like fish from Palau. I would say it's a little fattier, right, Ambassador? Because it's cold water. Our fish in Palau are a little leaner. They swim more. Now it's a little warmer. But it's delicious fish. And most importantly, give people confidence that, we can use science and data to make decisions on what we consume, how we protect, and so on and so forth. And also, being there in Onohama was really to give us an understanding of the amazing resilience and recovery that has occurred there. The fishermen were telling us that 2011, that was all destroyed. That's all new, rebuilt facility, and very impressive how far they have come. We continued our journey to the Fukushima Daiichi plant, but it was also interesting just driving up to the area. Of course, you see the buildings that were abandoned. You see life coming back, and they explained the process of how so many kilometers out was allowed to come back, and then they allowed more people to come back, and now right around the plant, that area is all open again. So people have slowly moved back. School children are going back to school, but all based on following very strict guidelines, cleanup guidelines, and making sure that safety of the people is number one. We, of course, drove in to the facility. First thing you see is, of course, the debris that's been collected, so the bags everywhere, the large tanks that have been built all over. There's a lot of tanks. And then we went into the main office complex, and it's, we didn't realize how many people are working there. They explained that there's 4,000 people that work there a day. And most of them scientists and engineers trying to solve problems and trying to make sure that everything that is done to the highest standard to ensure safety of the people and safety of the environment. And I think that's just a testament for us to be able to see that reassures, especially a Pacific island, who uses the ocean just like Japan as a large ocean state. It just reaffirms what we already believe and what we already felt, because we trust Japan. We trust the Japanese people. They've been very transparent, open in everything that they've done. And of course, allowing us to go there and see what they're doing is just another example of the transparency. We also went out and toured, went by reactor number 1 and 2 and 3, took pictures in front of the reactors. Could see I think it's what measures the level of radiation. As you got very close to the reactor, much higher, right? But still safe that you can be able to be around it. And all the measures are taking that people working there have to be, they have to check the levels to make sure that they're safe. And then just understanding that we have radiation all the time, and there's levels of radiation. I probably get more radiation from flights flying over here than from what we are exposed to at Fukushima. So just that's the reality, and sometimes I think it's the misunderstanding and misinterpretation of events. But then understanding the testing that's going on now and will continue if they release the water, how they're going to monitor and look at those levels. And then understanding that the levels that they will release it at will be much lower than what is safe for drinking water standards, how they're taking all the chemicals out, except for the tritinium, which is naturally occurring. And those levels that will be released will be below what is safe for drinking water, and much lower, if not when it is finally released in the ocean, almost at the same level of what is naturally in the ocean. We were also able to see the tanks that contain the flounder and the abalone, which was, one in Alps water and then the others in seawater, to show the difference. And the ones in the Alps water, I think, were eating more than the ones in they seem to be more energized, more active. But I think the important point was there seemed to be no difference. They were both healthy, but of course, and then making sure that if there is the amount of tritinium in it, is it going to affect people? So for us as members from the executive branch, I'm the president, and members of our parliament that were with us and the Council of Chiefs, traditional leaders, it gave us an opportunity to see firsthand, to verify really what we already believe or confirm, and really build confidence and trust. And I think all relationships should be based on trust, and really these trips and these visits to Japan are just reaffirm and strengthen that relationship that we already have. Being able to be there and learn and verify, well, not verify, but most importantly, understand, helps us explain back to our people. And I encourage other leaders to come and see for themselves, because I think it's important as leaders that when we are taking positions or discussing issues, we should know and be informed. One of the things as a Pacific Island that we're most concerned about is climate change. And one of the things that I observed while we were in Iwaki passing the port was the amount of coal that I saw. And coal means to us as Pacific Islands, sea level is going to continue to rise. And so it's so important for us to understand the need for nuclear energy. If we want to solve the climate crisis, we have to solve the energy problem. And part of solving the energy problem is we have to use nuclear power. And so it was reassuring to us to hear that even though Japan has closed down 45 nuclear plants, that they're going to be able to open up 30, at least. Those 2 are going to be decommissioned permanently, but that is important because that means less reliance on fossil fuels, which is important for combating climate change. So to me, what being done in Daiichi is important for us to all learn from, how to do it better, and be a way that we can embrace the use of nuclear energy safely, and at the same time help us in our efforts to combat against climate change. So that's at least what I was able to observe the last few days, and of course the opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Kishida yesterday was tremendous opportunity to just re-engage, have dialogue, talk about global issues, the issues in Palau and of course Japan, and how we can continue to collaborate, cooperate, to really promote a free and open Indo-Pacific, to develop our economies and security so that we all promote peace and prosperity, but at the same time work to a world where we all win. And I know one of the things that Palau gets caught in the crossfires of is our location. We are strategically located. We're off the coast of the Philippines and Indonesia, westernmost Pacific. Of course, the United States is building a radar site in Palau. There's U.S. military activity. We have a compact with the United States, a special relationship with the United States, but we believe that we promote peace through strength. And we need to be prepared. We need to be promote deterrence, presence through deterrence through presence. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And of course, we're open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We start our Q&A session. I would like to say that we finish at 2:30 as planned because Mr. President has some schedule. Richard.
Thank you. Richard Lloyd Parry of The Times. You mentioned the sharks that are found in Palau's waters, but as I understand it, you have slightly alarming visitors from elsewhere, from the People's Republic of China. And I wondered if you could talk about Palau's relationship with China and the Chinese activity that you've been seeing in your waters. You've talked in the past about Chinese bullying. What kind of activity have you been seeing recently? And what does Palau need by way of foreign support in order to secure your territory, especially your maritime territory? I'm interested especially in mention that was made of recent Chinese activity near fiber optic cables.
Yes, well, thank you for that question. Since I've been president, we've had 3 vessels that have entered our waters uninvited and conducting activities that looks like to us they are surveying activities without our permission. But they sail in straight from China, drive at very low speeds over areas that we them as sensitive, like our fiber optic cables, and we don't understand what they're doing. Of course, they haven't said what they're doing, and then they leave. And we feel that that's really a violation of our international rules-based order of respecting boundaries, and we plan to definitely inform them and warn them that that is not acceptable behavior. And of course, the United States is responsible for our security, and we have also informed them that we need them to engage and help us in deterring any unwanted activity.
What do you need the US to do in concrete terms?
Well, in most cases we call up the US Coast Guard, but they're in Guam, and this last time they couldn't respond quick enough because they just got hit by a typhoon. But that would be the approach, is to ask the US Coast Guard to come out, and then I guess first to ask what they're doing. But sometimes they can't respond as quick as needed. And or we have our own little patrol boats that we would send out, but the boat that was out there was about 4 times the length of our patrol boat. So I'm not sure what we could really do if we went out there.
Do you need more US assets in Palau?
I would say that would be as part of defending the homeland, as they say we are. We need them to also make sure that we have friendly visitors and not visitors that are doing activities that may impinge upon our security.
Next question. Yes, please.
Hello, Ryotaro Sato from Nikkei Asia. We met a few hours ago. Thank you for this chance. I want to ask about your stance on the Kyushu parallel extended continental shelf that you have economic claim on, and I would like you to sort of explain the Palawan stance at this point, and if possible, could you sort of reiterate the situation now regarding the Federated States of Micronesia also? Yes, so what's happening there, and sort of like importance to your nation?
So for Palau, this is a claim that's been going on for a very long time. Palau has had a claim for an extended continental shelf for more than 10 years. Recently, we've had another claim launched by our friends in Micronesia. But what we also have observed is Chinese vessels continuing to be on our extended continental shelf, traversing it, and also putting up Chinese names among our ridges. And even coming into our EEZ and naming some of our ridges in our EEZ Chinese names. So what we've seen on the international level is that, you know, our claim is going to be heard soon, but most recently that body is chaired by a Chinese diplomat who has opposed our claim from the beginning, which is not really an objective position to be in. And Palau, of course, has launched its complaint that we need objective people reviewing these claims and not individuals who have other interests. You know, Micronesia is we're our brother, and I'm sure we can talk to them about their claim. But the reality is, this has been a long established claim, and everybody calls it the Kyushu Palau Ridge for a reason, because it's been there. And I mean, we hope that the world and through the rules-based orders that we have, our claims and our territories will be respected.
Do you have sort of like a different stance with Japan on this issue?
Oh, Japan and Palau are very much aligned. We agree that we share the one ridge. Yeah.
Yes. Next question. Richard again.
Thank you. One of the notable things about Palau is that it continues to recognise Taiwan rather than mainland China diplomatically, which puts you in an unusual and I'm sure an interesting position. The government of the People's Republic of China makes vigorous and sometimes aggressive efforts to win countries round to recognising it rather than Taipei. I wondered if you could share with us some of the tactics that you face. I mean, I'm only guessing, but I imagine that as well as pressure, there are also inducements that are offered directly or indirectly. Could you tell us about those?
Well, I mentioned in the beginning, tourism from Japan before 2015 was the largest market that we had. In a matter of a couple of years, Chinese tourism to Palau went from 0 to 70% of market share. At one point, the hotel rooms in Palau were being booked 3 months in advance. And coconut crabs were selling for $800 because there were so many Chinese tourists in Palau, which, if you're a Palauan, that's a boat owner or a fisherman or a hotel or a house owner, you see the opportunity by the Chinese market and how big and how vast it could be. The Chinese ambassador in Pohnpei once told me, he said, this was before I became president. If you denounce your relationship with Taiwan and become accept China, the sky is the limit with economic opportunity. Why hold back? And of course, that is a message that rings. If somebody needs to feed his family, what do you think they're hearing? They see those opportunities. So one of the things that our administration has made very clear is that we're enemies to none, friends to all, and as long as we're friends of Taiwan and a friend, we accept anybody to be our friend. But that friend cannot tell us you can't be somebody else's friend, because that's not a friend. A friend accepts you as who you are, and you're a friend. So China said, well, if you don't accept our terms of denouncing Taiwan and stop your illegal activities, then of course we can't help you. Can't send tourists. So those tourists, peaked at almost 70% of our market share. Then they dropped soon after Palau didn't change diplomatic relations. But they're continuing again. We've restarted, even though we're only at 30% of the tourists that we had pre-COVID. The Chinese have started sending tourists again to Palau, and our people in Palau are so happy that they're back again because the boats are running, the rooms are being filled up. And that's why I've been working so hard with our allies. I'm here in Japan, again, saying, how can we get direct flights? Can it be Air Niugini flying from Palau to Japan? Can it be China Airlines flying through from Taiwan to Japan and going to Palau? Can it be Jeju from Korea to Japan to Palau? Or ideally, let's have a Japanese carrier like ANA or JAL, or let's start the direct service. Let's diversify the economy so that we're not so dependent on one type of tourist. Taiwan was really the first to start bubble tourism during COVID. We have direct flights from them. They're full already. We want more flights because we need our tourism to come back. It's an important component of our economy. And, it is, it's hard to say no when you need tourists, right? And you need to pay for your bills, and you need to keep the economy going. So it's important that we continue to work together to promote peace, but at the same time respect countries' boundaries and borders. And we're very concerned about what has happened in Ukraine, and we don't want to see any kinds of actions in the Pacific that would resemble anything like that. So,
thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Jun Katsuki from Kyoto News. My question is about the release of the water from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. So you said you trust Japanese government, but neighboring countries like China and South Korea have expressed concern about the release. So you said other leaders should come to and see what is happening there. So what does Japanese government need to persuade them or to ease their concerns about this?
Well, I think we should be consistent in what we do. If you read what's being released at their nuclear power plants now, both in Korea and in China, the levels of what they're releasing is much higher than what the Alps water would be releasing. So we have to be honest, and we have to talk about real data and real issues. And the levels that they're releasing it are safe levels. So even though they're much higher than what the Alps water would be, they're still safe. And so I think instead of throwing dirt on each other, because that's not helpful, because for me, we need nuclear energy. Let's try to make sure that we do it in the safest way possible. We've learned from past history of accidents and things that have happened. Let's prevent those from happening again, and let's make sure that whatever we do, the ocean resources, our environment is protected. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Hanaka Mitani from TBS Television in Japan. And about water release. In some countries, the leaders trust Japanese government, as you said, but there are some people in their countries who are against the water release. So, how do people in Palau think about that?
We're a democratic country, just like every other country. So, yes, even in our small country, we've had some protests. And some people disagree with our government's position. But that's why it's also important for us to be educated, to understand data, to see for ourselves, so that we can help our people understand. I think it's we live in a free democracy and we should be entitled to our opinions, but we also should make decisions based on facts, not just on feelings. And a lot of times we get carried up with feelings and ignore the facts. And that's what I would encourage. And so really base decisions on facts.
Right. President, let me ask about the tourism. What do you expect from Japan in terms of tourism? Like you said, China now is about 30% of the market share. Do you think Japan would be much more than that in the near future if steps were taken to facilitate the direct flights?
Yeah, we would like to see Japan at 100%. But, and I say that because we share similar culture. We understand each other better. We care about the environment. Those are the things that, and so when they come, we really appreciate Japanese tourists from that standpoint. So as many Japanese tourists as we can get, we would encourage that. I think what's important is sometimes it's difficult for private sector alone to move forward. So sometimes it's important that the government comes in to support the private sector to move it in the right direction. And so really I think part of our discussions have been with the government. How does the private sector get support from the government to push these initiatives and give them economic incentives so that they can develop the tourism market, or reopen it and get it back to where it was.
So if I want to go to Palau now, which airlines I should take, basically?
Well, you have two options. You could fly through Guam. First of all, it's expensive, and the other problem that it has is the connections aren't so good. But hopefully that improves. It's United, and they had more flights during COVID, so the connections were better. But because of COVID, they reduced their flights. Hopefully that'll change. Like for example, when we just flew up here, we had a 6-hour layover in the airport in Guam. Not so nice. It doesn't give you. So those are things that need to be improved. So that's one option. The other option is flying through Taipei to Palau. Also, you have to overnight, or it's not the best connection. And that's why we really are promoting, let's get direct flights going. JAL, over the last 30 years, has kind of had direct flight. They've had direct flights, but it's mostly on a charter basis. Really, the most successful airline that was really operating on a direct basis, regular schedule, was Delta. And they did that for many years, but when they changed their fleet and they took the 757s out of Japan, they could no longer access Palau. So one of our challenges in Palau is also our runway. It's not quite long enough. So we're limited to narrow body aircraft. And then because the length is also not long enough, you can't fill those planes to capacity. So because of the extra fuel that they have to carry to fly the 5 hours to Japan nonstop on those narrow bodies, they reduce the passenger load, which then increases the price of the ticket. So there's a combination of things that need to be done. Long term, we need the runway extended. That's an important thing. Short term, let's get those direct flights started as soon as possible. Make it convenient for travelers to come. It reduces their airfare, but most importantly, the convenience.
John?
Thank you. I don't want to hog the questions, but I can keep going if no one else has a question. I wanted to go back to the the question of Chinese tourism. You said there was a peak and then it fell away. I mean, tourism can fall for various reasons, but is there any doubt that that was a punishment for Palau's diplomatic position on Taiwan?
Well,
it was, in a way, economic sanctions.
Very much so. What happened after 2015, at the peak in 2016, is Palau was being promoted by travel agents in China, so that's why there was the influx of tourists. After that point, it was completely banned from being promoted. So you could not, Palau didn't exist as a destination or a country on any Chinese website. It was gone. And so they were, of course, getting through Macau to get to Palau, and then through Korea and Taiwan and other ways. But it was basically word of mouth, or kind of, they did not know about it. It wasn't a place that they was easily advertised or promoted. So, yes. And so that number dropped by 50%.
So it was punishment, basically. It was punishment.
Yes. And I said it, I guess I can say it again. I was in Taiwan on my first visit, and I said, if you want to, if you tell your wife you love them, you don't beat them to love you. You want to be in a relationship. If you're going to court them, you don't beat them into submission. You be nice to them and work with them. So that's what I think all relationships should be about, including relationships with China. So I think we should work together to help each other, not tear each other down. So.
Just to follow up, Mr. President, about Taiwan, do you have good number of tourists and economic relations with Taiwan?
Yes, right now we have, they're the largest number of tourists coming to Palau right now, which is good. They make up 30% of the current numbers that's coming into Palau. They just need to add more flights, which they're struggling for flights too, because of shortage of aircraft and crew. But they're an important economic partner, important development partner, and yeah. We've had diplomatic relations with them since 1999. And they also help in other areas, agriculture, fisheries.
Thanks. Negotiation and tennis. You decide. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Maria Maguchi from the AP. And I have two questions. One is about the planned release of the treated water from Fukushima. Some other Pacific Island nations and also respected experts are still raising concerns about safety of the project, the way it's monitored or sampled. I was wondering if you are worried about the release impact on the tourism in your country, and if there's really an alternative, viable and safer option to release of the water. For example, using treated water as cement to make like seawalls or make facilities on the plant. Would you reconsider and support option? And that's my first question. And my other question is a security question and related to China's growing influence in the region. What is your expectation for the Japanese role as part of the Japan-US alliance and with your partnership with your country? Thank you.
So I'm going to just share what I understood as the amount of water that needs to be released today. And that was something like 500 tons of water a day would be released, if I'm not mistaken. And if it's 500 tons of water, I mean, you can only build so many seawalls. The reality is water is going to continue to go in there for the next 30 years, and it needs to be treated and it needs to come out. you know, yes, I'm sure some of it can be used for that purpose, because it is water. And one of the things that, you know, we observed is how they're doing everything to stop groundwater from coming in, so covering surfaces and everything to keep groundwater from going in, to try to minimize the amount of water that gets contaminated. But the reality is there's only so much you can use, so and there's only so many tanks you can build. I mean, you're running out of space on that site to build more tanks. So I'm sure whatever they can use, that's a good alternative, but it's nowhere near what the volume of water that's already there and continues to come out that needs to be released. So, at least that's my observation. Yeah.
Are you concerned about its impact on tourism in Palau?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that I share with people is this water is not being released in Palau. It's being released off the shores of Japan, right in front of the plant. It's not, they're not taking a ship and bringing it to Palau. And to me, that's probably the most important thing to understand, because that means the Japanese government is doing everything to make sure that its citizens and its people are protected. If it's good enough for the people of Japan, it should be good enough for the rest of us. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So, I also understand that there's cost to everything that we do, and the amount of money that TEPCO and the Japanese government are putting in to ensuring safety is phenomenal. I mean, they're spending a lot of money. If I'm not mistaken, they told us 200 billion yen a year, the cost for the decommissioning. And that's the cost to make sure that what they do is safe for the people. And you know, of course, life is priceless, but they're doing everything they can to make sure that it is as safe as possible that it's released. And I think that's, you know, going there and seeing the 4,000 people that are working, the engineers that are trying to figure out how to do it the safest way possible. It's just monitoring, testing, all of that. That's what's important. That's what makes a difference. So, you know, I don't see it as taking away from tourism. I know what will take away from tourism. Burning more coal will take away our islands, and if we don't have islands to come and visit, then that'll be a bigger problem. So.
Dennis Normile of Science magazine. I'm glad you mentioned coal. I'd like to ask about sea level rise. It certainly seems that all the projections, whether that's sea level, will continue rising. What is Palau doing? And are you getting support to adapt to a projected rise in sea level? So, is Japan supporting any countermeasures?
So, you know, in the past few years, Japan has been helping us with the warning systems and things like that, because the frequency of the number of typhoons. But it is a challenge in the Pacific. I'll give you an example. A lot of my colleagues were upset in the Pacific about the amount of money that's being spent on AUKUS. I think it's what, 300 billion it's going to be spent on AUKUS. And it's about security, right? And we believe that security, peace should come through strength. But at the same time, what are we doing about climate change? For example, we know that we're just waiting for the next typhoon to happen. It's like Russian roulette now in the Pacific. Goes, hits Guam, we're waiting for when it's going to happen to us. A few years ago, it came to one of our islands. It wiped out every home and the school. Japanese government came and helped us rebuild the school. We are very much appreciative of that. The 40 homes that were destroyed, Taiwan came and helped us rebuild those homes. But we have a hospital, for example, that's near the sea. During one of the typhoons about 2 years ago, I was driving around because I was just concerned about the wind, because it just has to do with if it changes to a certain angle, we were going to get a storm surge, and then our hospital, which is on the first floor, would be totally flooded. So those are real challenges, and then we'd be out of a hospital totally. And so those are things that we have to think about, moving to higher ground, relocating schools, building communities on higher ground. And then, but the other thing that we look at is, let's not use that as an excuse that we can go to higher ground not to change our behavior, right? Because we should do everything we can. We have an island that's to our south that in 1980 when I visited it, the whole island has shrunk by 2/3. And the turtles are running out of places to lay their eggs, right? The people that live there are mostly relocated. Why should we allow that to happen when we, as the people, the citizens of the planet, can make a difference by burning less coal, by driving more fuel-efficient cars, or making decisions every day, being a vegetarian? I mean, these are things that if we make those decisions, we reduce our emissions and we help each other. And so we need to act, of course, mitigate, adapt, but at the same time take action. So one of the things that we know in Palau is we're a large consumer of carbon too, because our power plants run on diesel. We need to promote renewable energy. Just this last month, we opened up a new solar plant that will cover 20% of our energy needs. But we want to go to 100%. We want to partner. We want partners that can help us do that. And I think there's opportunities in islands, because the cost of fuel is so expensive to get there anyway. We can actually reduce energy cost and save the planet at the same time. So it's finding those opportunities for everyone to win that I think can really make a difference. So it's about getting everybody to work together. And I like to say we're stronger together and making the right choices every day.
Thank you. Mr. President, I would like to ask you about your participation, if confirmed, in the UAE COP 820. Are you participating there? We heard that some Pacific islands are not going to Abu Dhabi to participate, or Dubai to participate.
You see, that's where I also have a differing opinion. I was in Abu Dhabi during Sustainability Week. Al-Jabbar was announced as the president of COP, and we support that nomination. They said, why isn't an oil boss now heading COP? And I think if you don't solve the energy problem, how are you going to solve the climate problem? So we need energy people, part of the conversation, part of finding solutions to our energy problems. And so we need them at the table. I know that some people think it's like sleeping with the enemy. No, that's not what we're doing. We're working to solve the challenges that we all have. And I think, once again, it's, I think, lack of understanding about looking at the whole problem and how we address it and how we work together. Abu Dhabi is trying everything from making sure that they transition as much as they can to solar. They have incredible solar programs. They're also building nuclear power plants. They're trying to transition just like the rest of the world. And then not only that, they're willing to invest in other countries in renewable energy projects. So that's being responsible, and we need them to do more of that. We know that we can't just turn off the switch tomorrow and say we're not going to be using oil. So it's not the oil producer's fault, it's the oil consumer's fault. If you want to complain about the oil, you got to stop using it. It's not the guy producing it, it's the problem is the guy using it, right? So we need to work together. And I think as a producer, being willing to say these are other options that are out there and we're willing to support them, whether it's producing green hydrogen or other options, that's an important partner to have.
So you're participating there?
Oh, we're participating.
Thank you. Last question, please.
Oh, sure.
Akondo from Kodansha. My question is very simple. And is it possible or impossible in the future that diplomatic relationship between Palau and Taiwan will change to mainland China? Thank you.
Well, I guess ultimately it's a country's decision, right? And countries can change positions. But I have to say that Palau and Taiwan have a strong and deep relationship, and there's no doubt in my mind that we will continue to be a strong ally and a friend of Taiwan. As president, that's one of the responsibilities the president has, is deciding. And I've been very clear that as long as I'm president, I'm not changing. But we don't know who's the next president and what their position will be. But for now, the majority of the people in Palau trust and they value the partnership and relationship we have with China, and we'll continue, with Taiwan, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you very much for your insights, Mr. President. I would like to offer you a 1-year honorary membership to our club. Please, when you visit Japan again, please come and visit us again and give us the same like nursing and electronic talk.
Well, thank you. I know that we'll probably be coming back for Palm next year. So, but if I come back before then, yes, absolutely. Thank you most importantly for the wonderful questions and really the opportunity for us to share a little bit about Palau. I always like to share about Palau, and please come and visit us in Palau. We can have this press conference in Palau. That would be even better. Or we can have some media conference, right?
Sure. We organize press tours here in the press club, usually locally, but now we think seriously about international visit.
Well, you think of Palau as just part of Japan. We're connected.
All right.
On this ridge, so I'm sure you can justify it in your budget that I'm just going to go visit.
It's
Palau.
okay. We are very rich, basically, in terms of information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I thank you very much. Oh, yes, please. Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay. I look forward to seeing you in Palau. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful work. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. That'd be wonderful, yeah.